Okay, now I'd like to go over, if I could, the manual talks about if you've replaced the front cover or whatnot, or a first motion shaft. Then you want to check the new front cover first motion shaft to see if you need any shims. When you put on the front cover, it's got to be very tight tolerances here on the where this bearing race fits onto the front cover when you torque it down with the gasket. So there's a big write-up on it, how to do it in the manual. We're going to try it with using just plastigauge. And this is what you use when you, or what I use when I assemble engines, make sure the bearings are within tolerances. So this even plastigauge millimeters and inches. This even goes down to thousandths of an inch, which is just perfect. So we're going to give that a shot. Let's see if I can get some of this plastigauge out and put in on it here. And what we're going to do is just put this plastigauge in on the bearing race, put the gasket on, and then this stuff is very small, tiny. Bear with me. And then when we're going to put the gasket on dry. That means we're not going to put any, we're not going to grease it up like it says in the manual yet. We're just going to check the tolerances. So put this plastigauge on there. Check the tolerance of it. So I got some plastigauge here. We're going to put this on the bearing race. Put some on both sides. Get it to stick. Smash it down a little bit. Almost. There's that one. Put this one on over here on this opposite side. There. Okay. There we go. We got the plastigauge on there. Now we're just going to fit the gasket on dry, and again we're not going to grease it up. So we'll carefully put this on so we don't disturb the plastigauge or rip this. Put it on there right. Should be in it. This guy's got tight tolerances. These bolts almost started. There we go. That's it. Maybe I should have greased that up. So we got the gasket on there. Okay. I'll just offer up the front cover. On the front cover, make sure that you oil the seal here, the new seal. So, and be careful putting this on that you don't mess up your seal. Just put it on very carefully. Slide it on there. There we go. Now we'll put on the bolts and torque them up. I won't bore you with putting on the bolts. We'll put them all on and we'll torque them in sequence. and I'll show you that sequence once we get the bolts on there. Okay, we've got the bolts on, the nuts on, and now we're just going to tighten them down in sequence, just like putting on a tire. Tighten them down, crisscrossing pattern with each other. In such a fashion. And that's about it. And now we're going to just loosen up the nuts, take the front cover off, and check the plastic gauge on that bearing race to see how we did. Okay, we've loosened up the bolts. Let's take them off. I'm a huge fan of keeping the nuts in the same location that they came out. Put them here in that sequence. Again, when you want to loosen it, you want to go crisscross pattern, just to start off with. Again, we put this on dry. We didn't put the grease on the gasket. We're just trying to get a reference. Okay, there we go. We'll zoom in, hang on just a second. Okay, zoom on down. Bear with me. There's the plastic gauge right there. Hang on guys, I'm sorry. There's the plastic gauge right there. Okay. You can see that's pretty well squished. And we'll take our plastic gauge on the inch. We'll come down in here. Put it on there, and it's about that thickness right there on that one, the very top one right there, that guy right there, and that's 1/1000. So you can see this front cover doesn't need a shim to it. So, and again, it was the original front cover and original first motion shaft, but we did replace the front bearing. So that's a way I would recommend doing it. You can do it the way the manual says. You're going to have to do a lot of calculation and measuring. This is precise right here. This is how you assemble the engine. Check the bearing races in the engine. Same thing here that you can use. So that's one way that I would recommend doing. Checking the see if you need shims on the front cover. Okay, now we're going to check the alignment of the Layshaft here with the front cover. Make sure that they're lined up before we install things. Next thing we're going to be doing is installing the front cover. So again, just make sure you get oil on the front seal here so you don't cut that up. Alright, I'll go ahead and put a little bit of oil on the shaft assembly here. Alright, so let's see if I got this Layshaft lined up correctly. I'm just going to fit this on without the gasket and see if it goes all the way home. Okay, you can see I've got it. It's not going all the way, so we got to rotate it. There's an outline of the Layshaft. I think we got to do just a little bit more. I'm going to turn it just a little bit more up. We got to go this way with it. She went all the way home. Okay, so that's basically how we're going to just align the Layshaft so we can assemble the front cover. Okay, now I'd like to show you how to assemble the front cover. Again, make sure that you have your surface oil-free, nice and clean, and both the front cover and the gearbox here itself. Make sure that there's no nicks or anything or gouges. In the book it says to use grease on the gasket. I've already greased this guy up real good. Both sides with light grease. Just dip your finger in the grease, just smear it on there, nice and thin. That's all you need to do. If you have some nicks or gouges, you can use some silicone on the gasket material. The guy before me used silicone on all the gaskets, front cover and the half and stuff. But this front cover is nice and smooth and flat, no major nicks in it. So I'm just going to go by the book and use the thin coat of grease on both sides of the gasket. And what I use to clean off both metal surfaces is just a regular paper towel and rubbing alcohol on the final rub down. Alcohol dries real quick and gets all the oil off. And that's what I use in gearbox and engine assemblies for the final one. So I'm just going to take my my gasket, line it up correctly. I'm just going to slide it on there, fit it on there to the studs, a little bit at a time. It usually is a nice tight fit. And no, it's not the early morning. There's a rooster crowing in the background. It's actually getting towards the evening time. He doesn't know what time it is, but so just put your gasket on there. Try not to tear it. It's a tight fit. No studs. There we go. There she goes. That's it. Good. That's it. Okay. She's on there, nice and flat. Your Layshaft is aligned properly. We checked that earlier. So we are good to go. Get this out of our way. Okay, now we're just going to offer up the front cover. And what we're going to do here is just put a little light coating of oil on the seal here. All around it. Alright, and then we're going to put a little light coating on the shaft here. And then we'll clean that up after we put the front cover on. Let's put some oil on that. Okay, now we're going to, I've cleaned everything off. We're going to offer up the front cover, and we're going to be careful with the new seal on these splines here. We don't want it to touch or cut through on the front seal, so just take your time, put it on there, slide it on there. Try to get this so I can see. Alright, and she should just slide right on there. Now she's flush. That's beautiful. We'll just take our lock washers and nuts, start putting those guys on. Okay, on the nuts, we'll see which way they fit on there. Start putting them on finger tight. You can tell on the nuts which sides were out, which sides were up against the lock washers. You'll see lock washer side have been worked a little bit. There we go. All right. Finger tight for right now. Alright, these are 1/2 inch nuts. So we'll take our 1/2 inch ratchet, tighten these on. And again, just like we took it off, we want to go in a crisscross pattern to tighten them up. There are no specs. Make sure that you eyeball the front cover. Does that line properly? Basically, that new seal lines it up perfectly, so you don't have to worry about centering it too much. And you can get back and eyeball it. That looks good. So we're just going to tighten it up a little bit at a time. Both sides, crisscross pattern. There is no torque specs on these that I've found on these front cover nuts. But again, this is aluminum, so we're not going to crank down on it. Probably just like a valve cover, maybe a little bit tighter, maybe about 25 foot-pounds of torque. And once we get them all tightened up in sequence, we'll go back through them, tighten a little bit more. Main thing is that you want to tighten them crisscross pattern a little bit at a time so that you don't warp the front cover. Is the main thing that you're trying to do, as well as you do with any aluminum pieces. Alright, now we're getting there. We're going to torque it about 25. That's about 25. You hear it clicking. It's that human torque wrench. There we go. That's about it. Go back through them. There we go. That should be it. You can tell I like to double check things. Okay, there we go. That's all there is to assembling the front cover. Okay, now we're going to show you how to install the clutch withdrawal lever and clutch release bearing and the boot that goes along with that. The new bearing on final assembly, when we get it all together and the thing's ready to go back in, we're going to clean the face of this with rubbing alcohol is what I'm going to use. You don't want to need oil or grease on this face here that goes against the clutch release plate on this bearing here. Just nice and clean. What we will do is apply grease on the clutch withdrawal lever here, as I've already done. Grease those up. So that's that part. This part is going to get greased. The bearing here, new bushing here, I should say, is good to go. So let's install this stuff. We'll take out the bolt. Let me see, I like to put it in so I know which way it's going to go back. So let me clean that off a little bit. Alright. Now we're just going to put a little grease on this. Grease. Put a little grease on. Put a little dab of grease on here to help with the installation onto that bearing there. Put a little grease on that. She went in that way. All right. So now we're gonna get a little bit of it off of there. Okay. I'm going to set this bearing out of the way right now. And we're going to put the clutch withdrawal lever through here like this. Let's see if I can do this without getting in y'all's way. Put in the bolt. It's going to be a tight fit because it's a new bearing bushing. Try to spin it if you can. 3/4. There she goes. Slide it through. Now again, there is this on the front cover, this is notched right here, so the flat of the nut will have to fit on there. So you want to make sure that it slides, the bolt slides all the way through and is flush with this cover, this housing here, so that the flat of the nut can be used to tighten right there against this housing. But I don't like to do that because when you torque it down, as the guy before me did, it gouged this housing out. So I just go ahead and use my 3/4 and just hold it there while I tighten. So we're going to take our special washer and lock nut, put those guys on. This washer is not going to be moving. Everything's going to be just pivoting on this bolt through here. This bolt slides all the way through the housing far enough so that when you lock it down, tighten this, torque this guy down with this washer and nut, that this washer catches that shaft of the bolt here, and it's not pinching in on the housing at all. It's just torquing down on the bolt. So, and that's going to allow you to have movement here on this clutch withdrawal lever. So that's how I'm going to tighten this guy up, torque her down. This will take a little while, but I'll go ahead and roll the film. But we're just torquing down this acorn lock nut. Some call it acorn nut. I call it lock nut. Torque it down on there. Now what I went ahead and did on mine is that bolt that I'm tightening up on and the lock nut were brand new. Went ahead and ordered those through Moss, as well as the bushing that went on this withdrawal lever. This guy gets a lot of wear and tear, so I went ahead and replaced it. Torque her down. Okay, I'm going to switch over to okay, that should be good enough. You know me, I gotta double check. There we go. Okay, that's good enough. That should be good enough. Alright, moves freely, side to side, just a little bit of play, not much. Again, we're going to grease here and here for the clutch release bearing. Greasing here and here. Nothing on here, no oil or anything on there. Here's our tabs that we're going to rotate around. So we're just going to put this guy on here first. There she goes. Rotate those locking tabs around. There she goes. That one's on the flat. And that one's on the flat. On the back of this clutch withdrawal lever, you'll see there's a flat part that those things rotate around to. And that should be good to go. Alright, that should be it. Okay, next thing we got to do is the bolt, the boot. What I like to do on mine, you don't want to use oil or anything. Here's some of your protectant for rubber and stuff. I just shoot some of that on here. Need it anyway. This will help you lube it up to be able to put it on there. I like to go ahead and get it all, especially around in this flange here where it's going to fit around the aluminum housing of the gearbox. Get it all in here, lube it up. Alright, that'll help you slide it on there. And again, you're probably going to get a new one of these boots to put on here because yours is probably going to be just disintegrate when you take it apart. Alright, so here it fits on here in this fashion. And you can see it's sort of elongated here, so we're just going to slide it on and force it through this top part. There she goes.